looks a little clearer, even though you still might need to bundle up. We have Sullivan in the studio with us. Sydney has been keeping an eye on our weather for us today. What do we need to expect?
Fortunately, much quieter weather than what we saw yesterday. I know when we were all coming into work yesterday, the rain had really started to begin to pick on up. The wind was picking up, and we were even seeing a little bit of some wintry weather across higher elevations. Now, for the most part, that has begun to settle on down, so that's the good news there. With the exception of right towards the Tennessee-North Carolina border, we are seeing a few spotty sprinkles as well as a few flakes beginning to mix on in. Not a whole lot of activity, though. The air mass is so dry, so any bit of moisture that does fall, it's going to take a lot for it to actually reach the ground because it is so dry outside. But you might see a passing sprinkle or flurry. Otherwise, mainly dry as we go on into our Sunday. Temperatures are sitting right at 39 degrees in Greenville, 40 in Asheville, 42 in Clemson, 40 in Greenwood. So yes, certainly bundle on up this morning. And it is going to be a little bit on the breezy side, so that'll make our temperatures feel about 5 or so degrees cooler than it actually is outside. So winds anywhere from about 5 to 15 miles per hour as of right now. This will pick up as the day moves on, so expect a breezy day on tap. That will be accompanied by lots of sunshine. Highs will be topping out in the lower 50s for the upstate and northeast Georgia and across western North Carolina. Other than a few spotty sprinkles and a few flurries mixing on in, this should be fairly short-lived, and then things will clear on out this afternoon, but highs topping out only in the 40s, so it will be a cold day across western North Carolina. But coming up, I'll have a closer look at when we have a better chance for even more rainfall headed our way.
Thanks, Sydney. The Hearts
Live Super Doppler 4 weather is sponsored by Fred Anderson Automotive.
Well, we certainly had a wet start to the weekend. We even had a little bit of some wintry weather across higher elevations yesterday. In fact, at GSP, though, we picked up over an inch of rainfall, so very beneficial rainfall for us. I know it did impact the start of your weekend, but the good news is yesterday afternoon we were able to break away from some of that moisture and actually see a few breaks of sunshine. Now, I do anticipate us seeing a little bit more sunshine for today, but across western North Carolina, we are still looking at that potential for seeing a few light showers mixing in with a few flakes flying, mainly towards the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Elsewhere, should be a nice dry day on tap, and those highs will be topping out fairly seasonable, at least for the upstate northeast Georgia, lower 50s. Across western North Carolina with a little bit more cloud cover and that possibility for seeing a few light rain showers and flurries this morning. That's going to keep the temperatures down a little bit on the cooler side, so it'll be a cold day, and when you factor in the winds, that's going to make it feel about 5 or so degrees cooler than the actual temperature. Now, mainly this morning is where we are watching that potential for some light rain showers mixing in with a few flakes. This is mainly towards the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Otherwise, the rest of us are nice and dry. Notice that's also where we are going to see a little bit more cloud cover. Now, once we get towards the early part of the afternoon, most of this activity should begin to taper on off, and then this will set us up for a nice start to the work week before our next weather maker moves on in. We've had fairly active weather pattern, and that's going to be the case moving on into Monday night into Tuesday. In fact, we are in a low and severe weather threat, mainly from Greenville pushing towards the south and east. That's going to bring us that possibility for seeing a few embedded thunderstorms, some of which could potentially become severe. As of right now, it looks very limited that we'll see that, but a few embedded thunderstorms can't be completely ruled out. So as we move on into Monday, a few extra clouds will begin to drift on in, and then by the end of the day Monday, all of this moisture begins to move on in, becoming more widespread Monday night into Tuesday. Now, due to the rainfall we saw yesterday, we are looking at that potential of seeing some localized flooding on Tuesday. Also, a few embedded thunderstorms possible. So we are looking at quite this soaking of rainfall on Tuesday, and it doesn't look like it's going to let up much until the very end of the day once the sun sets Tuesday night. So we'll be tracking this one very closely, as that will bring us our next chance for more widespread rainfall and wind across the region. Things will clear on out on Wednesday and Thursday before another system arrives towards the very end of the week. And across western North Carolina, a few flurries possible this morning, and then once the rain moves back in Tuesday, colder air will filter on in, making that possibility for seeing a few morning flurries on Wednesday yet again.